Welcome to an example in which we're solving an m² equation here. All right, so how do we do it? Let me bring it down here. We have m² minus 9 equals 0. So solving when you have like m² or x² or whatever with an equal sign. Step 1, get a 0 on one side. So whenever you have x² or m² or whatever with an equal sign, step 1 is to get a 0. We've already got that. Don't need to mess with that. Step 2. Try to factor. I say try because they don't always factor. And when they don't factor, there's a special formula called the quadratic formula that you can use. But you can try to factor first. Now, there's two kinds of factoring. Well, there's more than that, but there's two kinds we're going to see here. Step 1 is if all the terms have a common element. Is there something in common? If so, then factor out the GCF, it's called, which is the common, it's called the greatest common factor, the common element. And you put the GCF in the front, and you put one big parenthesis with the plus or the minus in the middle, so that it would multiply correctly. So that's if you have something in common. We don't have that here, right? If you look at these two terms, they have nothing in common. Right now, if it was m² minus 9m equals 0, then I'd go, oh yeah, they both got an m. They have an m in common. I would put the m in the front, and then the minus here, and I go, okay, m times what? M times what? We'll go back and go back. I go, oh, m times m, and m times 9, and away we'd go from there. That'd be how we do it, but we don't have that. That was the last problem. So these guys have nothing in common. So that's B. That's another kind of factoring, and that is the two parenthesis factoring equal to 0. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to do the two parentheses. That's another kind of factoring. And you say m times m to make m², and 3 times 3 to make 9. And how do you get a negative 9? One's plus and one's minus. The order doesn't matter. You can make this one minus and that one plus. Doesn't matter either way. So, right? Because those will multiply to be m² minus 9, won't they? So then what you do is part C, set each part equal to 0 and solve. Right? So you take the m plus 3 equal to 0, and you take the m minus 3 equal to 0. Separately. Why? Why do we do that? Because it's logical. What do I mean logical? Because these are two things multiplying to equal 0, which means one or the other of them, either one of them can be 0. Right? Think about it logically. If I said, hey, I'm multiplying two numbers, and the answer is coming out 0. How can you multiply two things and get an answer of 0? Well, if the first one's 0, like 0 times 7 or something, that'll give you 0. Or if the second one's 0, like 3 times 0, that'll give you 0, right? Either the first one could be 0 or the second one could be 0. That's what we're saying here. These two things are multiplying to equal 0. So that means the first parenthesis is 0 or the second one is 0. That's got to be. That's what it means when two things multiply to be 0. The first one could be 0, or the second one could be 0 to make them times and be 0. And then we solve from there. What do we mean solve? Well, subtract 3 from both sides. Boom. Still a little equation. It's two separate equations now. Add 3 to both sides there. Boom. Plus 3. So there's our two answers. Minus 3 plus 3. Two answers. So you type those in either order. Doesn't matter. There's the two answers.